Hi friends, Renee Keese here with Carolina Creative, and I am a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. Today I'm here with more card making ideas, and I'm going to be using a suite from Stampin' Up! Called Nests of Winter. The stamp set is called Winterly Treetops, and you can see here there's several bird images, there's some greenery, there's some nice sentiments. This does come with die cutting as well. But with the suite, you also get paper. And so I'm going to flip the camera down so that I can show you this paper. This Nest of Winter has it's actually 6 sheets, 2 each, front and back. So you have 12 different designs. And you can see here the birds with the greenery, with the holly looking boughs. You've got birds in tree trunks. You've got, this will just make a card all by itself. And then when you flip these over, the back side is a little more neutral. So these are going to be very seasonal. You can go into fall, which is what I'm striving for today. You could go into spring. Here's some pretty greens. I love the stripe. I think this is going to make a lot of pretty cards. And this is pretty cool too. So there's a lot of interesting papers here, but what's really special about this set, and I got a couple of these out of the pack, is that one of these designs is meant to be used with the die cutting. And so when you take these birds and you take the dies, you can die cut the entire image. Well, what I discovered yesterday as I was die cutting some of these images was a couple of my birds, as you get to the edge of the paper, didn't come out. The tail and part of the image was cut off the paper. So I'm going to show you a way today to use this, and that way you can actually get 11 of these bird pairs out of this sheet, or you can cut out, I think I counted 8 or 9 of the pretty red bird. It'll just be a single bird. So I'm going to use, I've already used the die cuts, as you could see, and I've got 2 different samples of birds here. I am going to also use, I love this greenery die, and so I'm going to use that first. First thing I want to do is I've got a piece of cardstock. It's not quite our standard 4 by 5 1/4. I think this is about 3 1/2 or maybe 3 3/4, but it'll frame this. So the first thing I want to do is run this through my Stampin' Emboss machine. And I like to run this through twice. There's a lot of detail to this, and so I do find it's a little easier if I run it through twice. And then I will have to use my take your pick tool to get them all punched out. So here we go. 1 time, 2 times through. And as you saw, I've already die cut my birds, so I'm just going to move this to the floor out of my way. And let's see what we have here. So now when I pull this up, there we go. It's going to make a really pretty frame with all this greenery. And, oh, that came out really good. There's just a couple little pieces that needed to be punched out, so it transferred quite well. And then I have a leftover piece. And I think if I have time today, I'm going to show you some interesting things you can do with that as well. I did take, there's these little bough, almost a pine bough, and I have run those through as well, and I'm using a different color green. I kind of want to make it 2 tones so that you kind of have a foreground and a background. So I'll get back to using those shortly. I did not pull out my cardstock base. Let me grab that. I just wanted to use a white base for this and thought I had pulled it, but I did not. So you get to watch me cut cardstock. Here we go. So it's a standard 8 1/2 by 11 sheet of cardstock. I'm going to cut it at 5 1/2, just like that. And there's a piece for another card. I know some people like to score the whole thing and then they cut, so you've already got 2 cards. I never know if I'm going to want to make, a gatefold or something different, so I tend to not do that. I just leave it as a half a piece of cardstock. So there's my card base. And I'm going to go ahead and give this a good burnish so that it's going to close well. So that's my card base. Now I've taken another piece of paper out of that kit, and I cut it so it's just smaller than my frame, because I'm going to put it behind here. And I actually have two options. If you look, we could do it this way. It's kind of a pussy willow look. And I could put my birds on top of that. Or I could make it this more neutral, it's kind of a tree bark or look to it. And I think that's what I'm going to go for, is the more neutral look. And then obviously if you have the full die cut, it can go anywhere on the card, anywhere you decide you want to position this. I am going to tuck this so that his tail feathers, his missing tail feathers, are going to be hidden behind some of this greenery. You'll see how this works. And then I'm going to hide it with some additional pine boughs here, so that it'll just look like, we've got pretty greenery in there, and you'll never know that he didn't have a full tail and part of him is missing. I also cut out some of the little extra berries, so I'll probably put those beside him so it looks like there's this branch is continuing out beside him. So let me begin to work with this and put this together, and you'll see how quickly this goes. I had taken a scrap and I've used the Thinking of You Always stamp right off of this stamp set, and just stamped it on a little, a 3/4 inch strip, and cut it at an angle. And I'm going to tuck that in there too when I start assembling this. So I've got my glue, I've got my 2 extra boughs, I've got my poor bird that's missing some of his tail feathers, but we're going to make him very useful as he is. So first I'm going to go ahead and make this. This is very flimsy and it's a little delicate. So I'm going to firm this up by putting the background onto it. I'm going to use my glue and just run a bead right on the edge close to the die cuts here. So that is where the paper will go. And then I'm also going to make sure I have some glue on the ends of these. I can always add a little bit later, but I want to make sure that these aren't moving around, too much. Okay, so I'm going to flip. Well, actually, I can leave it just like that. Because I can line this up, I can actually see where it's going and know that, I don't have, there's none of the die cut showing through. So I know I've got this lined up correctly. It would have been cute on that as well. So that's my background. And I think now to work with this whole piece, I will go ahead and just glue it right onto my card base. And that way I've got a really nice firm work surface when I do this. Okay, and I'm just eyeballing this, but you can see how it's a little bit wider on the sides here. Now I'm glad I left some of these loose. I will add some glue under those later, because this will allow me to tuck my sentiment up in there and overlap it just a little bit, with the greenery, and then glue it down. So that'll work. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and just stick it in there right now, since I now know where I want it to go. And I like to use the liquid glue for this because I can slide it around. It's a little more forgiving, and I can line it up, where I want it. I'm gonna kind of angle this. Yep, I think that's a good way to do it. And now I'm gonna make sure that this has just a little dab of glue to hold it. Same thing with this, a tiny dot under it to hold it down. That one might need it too. We'll give it a minute and see. I'll probably go back over that at the very end. So now I'm gonna hide him. I'm going to tuck, let's see how I want to position him. Yep, tuck him in there so that part of him is behind there, but know that I'm still going to add a little more greenery over this in my alternate color. Again, it's to kind of give me some depth, so it's foreground and background, and it's just to mix it up. And here I'm going to put some over this end of the berries and that branch too. So with that being said, I'm going to now put some glue on the back here, like this. Make sure I've got him covered, and tuck him in there, him or her. Okay, and then put glue on my other pine bough here. And I'm just going to camouflage him a little bit. He's hidden in there. we don't always see the whole bird when they're sitting on branches. You know how we just see a portion of them? So that's kind of what this is simulating. And I could have put more greenery up in there if I wanted to. I mean, you have a lot of ways to play with this. So now the last thing I want to do is grab my Wink of Stella on the front here. And I'm going to give these foreground branches just a little shimmer, and then the heads and the wings of the birds, I'll just a touch of shimmer as well. Wherever there's color, basically, I'm putting just a little bit of Wink of Stella. Okay, the last thing, I think I've got just a few minutes. I don't want to go too long today. The cool thing we learned about this is really scrap, now that we've die cut this. I am going to use this with my blender brush. Because this is a Thinking of You card, I am not going to stamp anything else on the inside, but I wanted to put a little decoration. So I'm just going to go partially here, two sides. I'm going to use my blender brush. I'll get some ink on there, and I'm going to dab it off, dot it here, and then just start swirling this on. And I'm going to do this very lightly. So a little like this, and along the bottom here, and just put a little bit of color. This is Shaded Spruce, which it matches the paper. And then what I'm going to do, look at how pretty that is. I'm going to turn it, so I'm using the opposite side, and I'm going to line it up. So this is going to give me a different pattern, and this time I'm still going to dot that heavy ink off. I'm going to go darker, so I'm going to press a little harder. And again, it's going to give you this two-toned effect. And it's going to look like you've got boughs in the foreground and the background and everything in between. So I'm just going to do this on two sides, give me a little bit of an edge here, like that. And so you get the effect. It's a really cool effect. I did this in Garden Green on some other cards, two-tone, all the way around, and this is going to be a card insert. A really neat trick for using what would be a leftover scrap piece that so someone's going to get this card and open it up and go, oh, surprise, look at that. So here's another good reason for using a glass mat. If you're not, you're going to want to do this on top of paper because it does leave some ink behind. It's a little bit messy. So I'll go ahead and just clean that right up, and it's gone. So my card for today, Thinking of You Always, using the Winterly Treetops and Nests of Winter. I just made a Thinking of You. So this is a nice fall going into winter card. No sentiment on the inside because I want to be able to write, whatever the occasion may be that I'm thinking about this person. But a little bit of stamping in there. Could have put a bird, could have put pussy willows. There's several things that I could have used from the stamp set in there, but just a little decorative touch. So thanks for joining me today. If you like the products or the projects you're seeing here, you can find me at Carolina Creative or hashtag Carolina Creative. And you can also find me, Renee Keese, on the StampinUp.net site. Thanks for joining. Stay tuned for the next one.